motion here that we will start. Okay, we will call to order the February 9th meeting, 2026 of the Bloomington City Council, and ask that everyone please stand for pledge of allegiance to the flag and remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next, we'll go to roll call for attendance.
Councilmember Kearns. Here. Councilmember Mosley.
Here.
Councilmember Montney. Here. Councilmember Dannenberger.
Here.
Councilmember Straza.
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks.
Here.
Councilmember Ward. Here. Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Scott. Here. Mayor Brady.
Here. Thank you. Next, we will move on to recognition and appointments. And I don't know if any of the following individuals are here. They're going to be reappointed to the Commission for Safe Committees. But if they are, please stand as I call your name. Sierra Aiden, Ryan Bertrand, Dr. Denton, Elizabeth German, Robert Harris, Kathy Lust, and Caitlin Selman. Thank you. Next, we'll move to public comment and other individuals seeking public comment, Madam Clerk.
For the record, we received no emailed public comment, but we do have 2 people registered to speak in person, which will call to the front after you read your statement. We'll start with Tracy Pacunas.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the City Council. It's also an opportunity for the City Council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain and focus on the city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the council does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order, and their time will be ceased. First speaker.
Hey. Mayor, members of the council, and staff. My name is Tracy Pacunas. I'm the immediate past president of the Mid-Illinois Realtors Association. On behalf of MIRA, I would like to express our strong support for Agenda Item 9C, the resolution establishing the 2026 City Council strategic priorities and guiding principles for the city of Bloomington. We commend your leadership, and we appreciate the inclusion of housing as one of your 4 strategic priorities and core principles, which will guide future policy, budget, and organizational decisions. MIRA is encouraged that the Bloomington City Council continues to prioritize the community's housing challenges. We previously supported many of the efforts you've already undertaken to address our community's housing needs, from hosting housing symposiums to the launch of the Building Bloomington website, to the adoption of your standardized housing incentives ordinance, to the revised housing rehab program, to your zoning code review, and willingness to explore missing middle housing in some areas of the city. You continue to show that the housing needs of your residents and future residents are important. Realtors share the goal of ensuring there are enough places for people to live and of expanding access to home ownership, especially for first-time homebuyers, making it easier for them to find homes that are affordable. And we share the goal that housing policy should strengthen communities rather than limit opportunity. At a time when we're facing a housing shortage and too many families find home ownership out of reach, we applaud your efforts to prioritize the housing supply and improve affordability. As you continue to develop proposals related to housing, MIRA looks forward to continue collaborating with you, and we thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy Pacunas. Are there other speakers?
All right. Last up, we have Christy Ingerman. All right. Okay.
Thank you,
All
Christy.
right.
That
There's
was
no
great.
further public comment.
Next, we'll move to, if there's no other speakers, correct? Okay. Next, we'll move to public hearings, and the public hearing on the program year 2026 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. We will call first off Mr. William Bessler, the grants manager, will be presenting along with Patrick Cordero, a director. And at this time, we'll call the public hearing to order, which is at 6:04 p.m. on today's date. Whoever would like to go first.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. Tonight, we're going to preview the annual action plan for program year 2026 for the Community Development Block Grant. Next slide, please. So the CDBG program, as many of you know, is a formula-based grant that is provided by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The City of Bloomington is an entitlement grantee, which means that we receive annual allocations, assuming Congress provides funding for it. CDBG must be used to meet one of three national objectives: benefit the low to moderate income persons, prevent or eliminate slum and blight conditions, and meet urgent community needs. Regulations found that govern CDBG are found at 24 CFR Part 570. Next slide, please. The 2025 to 2029 consolidated plan, this annual action plan will be the second year of the consolidated plan. The consolidated plan is really the foundational piece to everything we do with CDBG. So every 5 years, we go out to the community and we complete a robust outreach and engagement process in partnership with the town of Normal and the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. And that process, which was completed between April 2024 to January 2025, led to the following goals: preservation of existing affordable housing stock, elimination of slum and blight conditions, support of the provision of public service activities, public facility and infrastructure improvements, and administering CDBG effectively and proficiently. Next slide, please. The geographic priorities within the consolidated plan largely follow the city's comprehensive plan. With this consolidated plan, we did add an additional geographic priority in South Central Bloomington that covers the census tracts that are not already covered by the preservation or regeneration area. Next slide, please. So program year 2026, it should say, excuse me, is going to cover from May 1, 2026 to April 30, 2027. It's the 52nd year that the city has administered the CDBG program. The annual action plan outlines the goals and the projects that will complete within that year period, and all of those have to have a connection to the consolidated plan. Next slide, please. So revenue assumptions, we're in a tricky spot as staff because HUD is always delayed with giving us the annual allocation number. So we do have to estimate that every year, especially when we begin the budget process in September. We do assume at this point $555,000 based off the last 4-year average, program income from old housing rehabilitation loans, and prior year resources that will make up the revenue of $610,000, which is an investment in our community. Next slide, please. So I want to go through each goal and what we're doing, proposing to do in this annual action plan. So a bulk of our funding will go to the preservation of existing affordable housing through our housing rehabilitation program. This includes homeowner assistance, our emergency rehabilitation program, and water sewer installation services that are completed with Habitat for Humanity of McLean County to provide new affordable housing stock. Elimination of slum and blight conditions involve residential housing demolition of vacant and abandoned properties. Next slide, please. We also provide funding to nonprofit organizations that serve Bloomington residents. So this year, we did have to include Prairie State Legal Services, and I'll get to that towards the end of the presentation on why we had to do that. But we're once again funding Home Sweet Home Ministries Street Outreach Program, which is a great asset for our community and will work in tandem with the bridge operations, which is new. KTB Financial Services for their financial empowerment program, Prairie State Legal Services for housing legal services, and then the West Bloomington Revitalization Project for community operations. Next slide, please. For public facility and infrastructure improvements, we are proposing an $80,000 project in partnership with the Housing Authority of the City of Bloomington for Woodhill family apartment playground upgrades. And then finally, to administer CDBG effectively and proficiently, that includes general administration, which includes some staff reimbursement, community planning activities with the McLean County Regional Planning Commission, and the West Bloomington Neighborhood Planning funding that we are introducing this year. Next slide, please. So to receive funding from the City of Bloomington CDBG program through public service or public facility, organizations must go through a competitive process. So we released the RFP in November, and those applications are due in January. We received 10 applications in total, requesting over $1.1 million, 8 public service and administration applications, and 2 public facility and infrastructure improvement applications were received. Awarded organizations are subrecipients of the city's CDBG funds. So we enter into a subrecipient agreement with them, and we are essentially providing oversight on behalf of HUD. Next slide, please. Notable changes for this program year, beginning on May 1st, all new pre-applications for housing rehabilitation assistance. Applicants will need to be within the preservation and regeneration area of the city as defined by our comprehensive plan. This will not apply to emergency housing rehabilitation requests, but this fits within our department's initiative to use our grant funding and other resources in a more targeted approach for community revitalization and development. As I mentioned earlier, HUD did direct the city to put housing legal services with Prairie State Legal under public service category this year instead of administration. I don't think we agree with that conclusion, but that is the policy of HUD, so that's where we're putting it. There is no sidewalk improvement project in program year 2026. We are working with the engineering department to evaluate future opportunities for that funding as it was identified as a critical priority in the consolidated plan. And then we are also providing funding for the West Bloomington Neighborhood Plan in cooperation with the West Bloomington Revitalization Project to do some really updates from the quality of life plan that was completed back in 2008. So we're excited to do that in partnership with them and connect with the community in a more robust way with that. Next slide, please. So next steps, public comment is open until February 23rd. I do note that the city reserves the right to make changes based off annual allocation amount changing or other changes that are requested by HUD or City Council. Consideration and action by City Council will happen once we receive the annual allocation amount and we are allowed to submit by HUD. HUD then has to approve the plan, and then HUD would release the funding. Typically that occurs in September. Next slide, please. And that's the public comment information. You can send residents can send public comments to me or Joni Gerard, grant specialist within our department. Next slide.
Thank you. Any other comments in the presentation? Nope. Okay. Are there anyone from the general public that would like to make comments at this time in the open public hearing part?
We didn't have anyone register in advance. That's not required. So if they'd like to speak, they can, but there were no advance registrations.
Thank you. Members of the council, questions, comments? Member Ward.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this information. Just a couple of questions. Can you say anything about the parameters of the preservation and regeneration funding? What kind of, are there limits as to how big those grants are or who they can go to? Can you just say that?
Yeah, so the CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Program is income qualified, so is for owner occupants that have household annual incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. That can be found on the city's website. In terms of the geographic priorities, like I said, this is relatively new for the city in terms of our CDBG funding, but it does align with the department. They can receive up to $30,000 in hard costs. Soft costs such as lead-based paint hazard removal or control is considered a soft cost. There's no limit on that. So it just depends on the project. But $30,000 is the max they can receive in hard costs. That'd be electrical, plumbing, roof, a whole host of things that could be done in terms of housing rehabilitation.
And you say it's relatively new. So how many projects are you anticipating being able to do with this?
So the housing rehabilitation program has been with the city since the CDBG funding came to the city back in the 70s. So that part's not new, but I think that the geographic prioritization is the new part for us. We're anticipating 7 units to be completed within the program year. It's an educated guess because each project's very different with housing rehabilitation.
And then can you Can you tell us how many demolitions were done in the last year and how many you're in? I think you're anticipating two, right? For this coming year?
We anticipate one demolition that is dependent on the demolition itself, much like rehabilitation. We can't, we budget for one, but it could be two. For this current program year, we are in the process of one demolition being out for bid. So we'll meet our goal for this year.
Councilmember Ward, if I could, and Cordero, if you want to jump in, we will also be talking to you about the use of other funds for more demolitions as part of the budget conversation. So this is just one source of funds that we hope to be able to use for demo. So there will be more as part of that other conversation that's going to be coming here soon.
Thank you.
Also, Mayor, members of council, when we talk in terms of years, we're talking in terms of fiscal year. So our program year is the same as the fiscal year. So for this fiscal year, FY 26, we are anticipating of doing at least one demo, but there are two others that are going through our demo process, right? So those may get demolished in the next fiscal year after May, but still within this calendar year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, William, could you speak a little bit to the line item for the Regional Planning Commission? Is that just for us to be part of that organization, or is there some sort of service that we're receiving as a result of that amount of money?
Yeah, so the easiest way to explain it would be they provide technical assistance, both Town of Normal and City of Bloomington. So we both partner to provide funding for community planning efforts. So things like the housing data dashboard, the white papers that they release, and also support with the consolidated plan is included within that technical assistance.
Other members, Member Mosley?
I have one question because you mentioned HUD and sometimes those unknowns. What type of contingencies do we put in place if those funds don't come available? Is it something that we earmarked or we anticipate?
Short answer is we always believe they're gonna send us the money. Uh, there are times where the general fund will carry the load for the HUD programs, and then we reimburse back the general fund. Just in my tenure, I've never seen a situation where HUD has not released funds. They might not release them when they say they're gonna release them, but at some point we do receive the funds to reimburse the general fund. But typically the general fund carries the load, and then the federal government funds just reimburse back the general fund so that we can continue to do those projects.
And I would also just add that CDBG does enjoy wide bipartisan support in Congress, is funded within the most recent appropriation bill.
Other members? If not, thank you, gentlemen. No other public to speak, so we will close the public hearing at 6:17 p.m. and move on to our consent agenda at this time. Are there any members wishing to have any of the items of consent agenda pulled and action for further discussion? Member Straza.
Yes, I'd like to pull 8H, please.
Okay. Other members? Member Ward.
I'd like to pull 8F.
Okay. 8F. Other members with any other items? Okay. If not, then we'll go ahead and ask for a motion to take the rest of the items on consent agenda that have not been asked to be removed at this point
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
by Member Hendricks and Member Ward. That's pretty good. If you'd call the roll, please. Electronic.
Sorry, I got booted out.
Councilmember Ward, how do you wish to vote?
Aye.
Got it. Thanks. There's no nays to announce. The item passes.
Thank you. Recorded there. Then next we will go back. We'll go back to Member Straza on item 8H.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I pulled that one just because I want to have more discussion on just as I was looking at the contract. I know we're doing an addendum to the current one that we have, which is 3 years. I was curious, it didn't state anything about having why we can't have a less of a time frame than 3, 2, 1, whatever. And I just wanted to have a little more discussion about that. And then also the out clause, trying to look at the original document. I read through that and I just want to make sure I understand the termination parameters. So that was the reason I wanted to have more discussion.
Thank you. Members? Not? Manager, City Manager Jurgens?
Yes, thank you. So originally when we went out and looked for a lobbying firm for our federal government, we did an RFP, and the council selected Thornton Run, and it was for a 3-year agreement. So over the last 3 years, they've been very successful for us, great to work with. So they proposed another 3-year agreement, and that was the staff recommendation. There is a provision in the agreement and I'll make sure my corporation counsel agrees with this, but that the agreement can be terminated with 30 days notice. So while it is and that's mutual both ways, while it is a 3-year agreement, if something were to change, the council could agree to give notice and end the contract at that time.
That's correct. That's my reading of the contract.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, with that, is like I said, with the termination part, Chris, I was just curious, legal counsel, that has, of course, it looked like 30 days and then it had a list of other things on there. I assume those are just more if someone did something that wasn't correct, you can do it that way, or it's just 30 days, no matter if we choose, just have a written notice. And then from there, we only pay up to that point. We don't have to pay any penalty or any other fees beyond this, whatever that we had up to that point, correct?
Correct. The list is for cause. You are correct.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Just a question, and I know we talked about this last time around, but with such great relationships with our 2 representatives from this area, it's a challenge for me to see nearly $300,000 being paid to an intermediary for communication with Congressman Sorensen and with LaHood, and I'm wondering if they feel that this middleman approach, I guess, for lack of a better phrasing, is warranted. Just curious if those conversations have taken place between staff and our congressman.
So I have not personally had those conversations. It's very common for public bodies like ourselves, to utilize these types of services. And it's not as a representation on our local congressman at all. It is more so that they are helping us navigate the federal rules and the regulations. They are helping us identify what type of projects qualify for funding and helping us staff with those applications and those processes. And there's a lot of turnover sometimes on Capitol Hill. So sometimes, we find our lobbyists sometimes know the rules the best and are really able to help us out. So in the 3 years that we have had them, we have secured $5.7 million. And in one of those years, the government didn't have a budget, so there was no funding. So that's really just out of 2 years. It's about, I think, about a 1,900 over percent on return as to what we've received from that. And the only other thing I would say is we went back and checked before we hired Thorn Run. Staff cannot find the last time that we got or received any congressional directed spending. So it's a process that our staff is not necessarily qualified on. We had used others before Thorn Run that were not successful. And so I understand it's obviously an expense, but we do believe it to be fruitful for the council and for the city to bring back as much in federal tax dollars that we're sending there as possible.
Member Mosley.
Yeah, I just have a question as well. Prior to this relationship, have we used a firm like this from a lobbying perspective in the
So
past?
the city had a relationship with Cardinal Infrastructure, which is another lobbying firm out in DC. And it is used by some of our partners. They had not been able to be successful for us in bringing any federal dollars. And I'm kind of looking at our engineer over there to make sure I'm saying that correctly. But we had not been successful in the past before Thorn Run.
And were they part of that RFP process when we chose?
I'm not sure. I think they did submit, we had several lobbying firms submit proposals and Thorn Run rose to the top of that.
Okay, thank you.
Member Ward.
Yeah, I just have a question for the city manager as well. So I'm assuming Thorn Run has other clients besides us.
Yes.
And I'm assuming they're also talking to other representatives besides our own.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And
Yeah.
one might also presume that if our community has an interest that aligns with another one of their clients' interests, they're also representing us to more than just our own representatives.
That is accurate, and that raises a good point. So the two lobbyists that we work with focus on the public sector, and I think Thorn Run has a wide variety of clients, but they also have some that just focus on the public sector. So the individuals that we work with have public sector clients all over the country, and they do more than just help us with the earmarks. They are, for example, we've already had some conversation on housing. They've talked to us about the housing tax credits and have relayed the importance that we see on that. They have helped Anthony Nelson in the arts and entertainment department with some issues with Ticketmaster. So they advise us on a number of things and help keep us informed. It's more of a, and we talk to them probably every couple of weeks, at least once a month, even when Congress isn't in session, talking about different issues and keeping us up to date on things.
Any other members? Member Mosley.
Yeah, I do have just one more question, and it kind of is to either the city manager or Councilman Straza. Is your ask more so regarding the length of this proposal, or is it more so that we open it up and routinely do RFPs, or is it just because obviously there was an increase compared to the past 3 years? Is that reasonable, or do we need to do a blanketed view? Is that what you're considering or asking? Or
Yeah, one of the things I always in the things I've done in the past is I know it's only been 3 years that this Thorn Run has done work for us, and they've done very well. I don't know what the measure is, if that is good or bad, if that's, it sounds like a lot of money, but it is that someone do something better. I've just always looked in my course of business is over so many years, we always make sure we go out and vet other people and get other quotes and see if there's someone else that is better. Not saying that they're bad, it's just saying, is there someone better that can do more for us? And what that means, what is the parameters of that? So is this something we're going to go 3, 6+ years until they don't seem like they're helping us? Or what is the measure that we will decide if we need to go back out to do another request for proposal from other groups?
So I guess my response to that would be certainly if at some point we felt that they were not delivering, then we could revisit the relationship. As the attorney said, that there is a provision to be able to get out of the contract. But at this point, again, over the last 3 years, they've been extremely successful for us, and they've been really good in terms of getting information and keeping us up to date. So, not to say somebody couldn't do better than almost 2,000%, but that's a pretty high benchmark for somebody to hit. And there's only so much congressional funding that's out there. So, we've been very, very successful, I would argue, over the last 3 years. Again, and including that one of those years there was no budget. So
Just a real
Member
quick
Scott.
question. Do they help us with state action as well, or just federal?
they are only federal for us.
Got it.
Any other members with comments? To our city manager. Ultimately, though, the earmark comes from the elected congressman and senator, U.S. senator on federal matters. It's their budget, meaning it's their staff and the budget appropriations through the House and the Senate that's going to be allocated to them to divide through their districts. Certainly, influence, and I think any lobbying firms will tell you they're very good. In fact, some would probably tell you they're the best. But it does get back down to that elected official who we establish and have good rapport with, which is very important. And that's why they are elected to represent us and come back to the district and meet with us. So I think those are important. And from my interest of things is looking at the contract itself and having the opportunity to go through that a little more in depth. And so I don't know if there's any motion of anything that anyone else wants to bring forward.
I would just like the motion to bring this back as soon as possible, because I know the contract is due, and just look at, does it make sense to look at other options or reduce the amount of years, or is it just the 30 days is plenty and everyone's fine with 3 years and 30 days of we can terminate the contract? So I don't know if people, I'm just trying to decide if, if I basically want a motion to say, can we discuss this a little bit longer and bring it back on our next meeting?
Okay.
Whichever it is, I don't know what the date is. I don't know my dates in front of me.
23rd.
23rd.
So there's a motion.
Just
ahead.
another question, if I might, and I may have missed an email on this, but is there a One Voice trip coming up where there will be visits to our congressmen's offices and with their staff coming up even here just within the next, 2 to 4 weeks?
There is, with the lobbyists that they engage with do not write the proposals and, figure out the bills and the qualifications. So we still rely on our lobbyists to do all of that legwork for us.
So I guess I brought that up just for, for context about their role in this and just kind of getting some clarification maybe around this. Does it make sense if this is going to be revisited in 2 or 3 weeks? When is that trip?
It is, I think March 2nd, 3rd. Yeah, somewhere around there.
So basically 3 weeks, and I'm assuming someone here from council is going on that trip. So, I mean, I guess I'm just asking the question then of you two, would that opportunity to engage with them be helpful information for us to make a better decision on this, a more informed decision?
Well, if you're asking me, Member Monty, that's possible. But I think to our city manager's point and to Member Straza's point, the personal contact is irreplaceable with our elected representatives. I believe next week I'm meeting with Congressman Sorensen. Part of that, I've had discussions with Congressman LaHood and Senator Durbin, which we greatly appreciate. And I think, if I'm understanding correctly, it's to kind of look at the contract side of things and see the length of that. Can it be something shorter? Can we do something when we talk about the finances side of things and savings and do more of our own lobbying, not only at the state level, which we don't have represented right now, which is fine. I think we can find some people. And secondly, then in DC, how best can we have representation there for all the taxpayers at a cost and at a time frame in which I think that we can all appreciate and understand.
I mean, I understand the results seem compelling. City Manager Jurgens, I mean, in light of these ongoing conversations, do you feel that it makes sense to give a couple of weeks for these conversations to take place?
It would be my recommendation, no. It's not going to change staff's opinion. We're in the middle right now of the congressional, the session, getting ready to kick off. So technically, we are out of contract with them right now, and they are scheduled to help us sort through our projects and figure out what are eligible good projects to pitch to our delegation. So my recommendation would be, these individuals have been very successful. We have a 30-day clause if it's needed, if we find them no longer successful or no longer necessary. But the staff recommendation would be to continue to move forward with them.
And the opportunity to reduce the term to 1 year, what's your thought there?
We already have the ability to end the contract with 30 days notice, so
No
I'm,
cost.
right, yeah, so I'm not sure that that really gains too awful much. I'm sure that, we could talk to them and revise the year, but, with the 30-day clause, I don't see that as an issue.
Thank you.
And I would just say if the council decided they wanted to go out for an RFP on this again, then we would give them notice and we would do that. So, but that would be obviously up to the council to decide.
Member Straza?
Well, based off all the conversation, which is good that we had this, I guess I'm gonna pull my, what I was asking for, and knowing that we have a 30-day, that's guaranteed we can pull 30 days. That means we can still look at other options at the same time, and knowing that we could give them a notice and go with somebody else we wouldn't choose to in the future.
Right. I mean, it would be an RFP. We would
Yes,
be an
yes,
RFP process,
yeah,
right?
but there'd
Yes.
be a notice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Member Hendricks?
Yeah, just given that there was no second to that motion, I would make the motion to approve this item as presented by staff.
Can I ask one more
Member
question?
Mosley?
Can I ask one more question before you address the motion? I'm sorry. With that, right? Do you guys typically have data looking at, or did they provide that when they sent us? Because like you said, 200, I think you said 200,000%.
1,999%.
Same
I think,
thing, yeah.
somewhere around.
So,
yeah.
so comparable to cities like us, right? I mean, are other cities seeing this type of return, or are they just telling them we're getting beat out the moon, right?
Yeah, I think, no, I don't have other data to compare us to, but I can get that.
Gotcha.
I think, based on my history, we've been very successful with it, but, as the mayor said, obviously it's very important. And as some of the members have said, obviously very important to maintain those specific relationships with our elected officials. This is not, sometimes people think of lobbyists as, they're the ones in there,
Mhm.
doing the things, but they are really helping us with the administration of this and with figuring out what bill is going to qualify and what project's going to qualify. So they help us a great deal with the administration of all of this, and they've been very successful in identifying what works and what doesn't work.
Okay. Okay. And with that, then because today is my 1 year, and after maybe next year I may not be here, depending on things, but I think it's important for some stability, right? Regardless, because we can move, right? And we have some consistency. So I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna
Member
say,
Ward? Or, I'm sorry, Member
that's all
Scott?
right. Member Mosley, I had the same question, and I looked it up, and I did find one study from the University of Chicago that showed a significant positive correlation between municipalities, the hire lobbyists, and the funds that they return. Not very many studies, but it made me comfortable that there is something out there, of course. And then this information for us specifically and our relationship with them makes me support that motion as well.
The item passes, no nays to announce.
Thank you. Next. Member Ward?
Yes, thank you. I asked to pull this item not because I'm looking to vote against it, but I'm looking to amend it. So I'd like to move approval of it with a couple of amendments, actually 3 amendments. And I also have some questions. So I'm not sure what order I need to do all that in, but maybe Corporation Counsel can give me some guidance in that.
Why don't you go ahead first, and Director, if you'd like, to her line of questioning.
I was just going to say, if you want to ask questions and then tell us what your amendments are, I can try and help you from there.
Sure. So I have a couple of questions about what kind of guarantees we might have that what we're looking at now won't happen again. So are there any warranties or any guarantees from the manufacturers that we would be able to um, call in if we were to discover a similar problem? So that's question number one. And the other question I have is, what, if anything, are the options for recouping any of our costs from the manufacturers of the old weapons? And I'm not sure who to direct those questions
Start with
to.
the
Yeah.
chief.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Council. So most importantly, these guns do come with a manufacturer warranty. Um, However, we made sure we took our time, we were diligent in research. There are agencies that have put thousands of rounds through this weapon and they've shared their results with us. The outcomes have been positive, as was with the gun that we currently carry. Um, so based on the specifications and all of those, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. I challenge my staff, which that falls under Assistant Chief Walmsley, to make sure we make the right decision. So we weren't fast to push this forward, but now we're at a point where we know that this is the best weapon to go with. We tested it ourselves as well, and received feedback from our staff, which was also important in this process. As far as the current weapon and um, any recourse for liability, I'd have to defer to Corporation Counsel on that. I will say that there are many suits that are across America on both sides. I believe the manufacturer has sued, others have sued the manufacturer because of some disagreements. We actually brought a representative in from 6 Hour, spent hours with us going over their testing of the weapon. Um, they did tell us in their strong opinion, the weapon is safe. However, we can't control the outcomes of the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. They're the ones that set forth this um, pause on using a weapon, discontinuance, I should say, of using a weapon for training here in Illinois. So that's as much as I can speak to. Do you have anything else to answer?
In terms of the recourse piece, I'm guessing it would take a lawsuit then in order to recoup anything, or
I'm not an expert on 6 Hours or handguns in any way. What I know, I learned mostly after Chief brought it to my attention and I did some research. There are a number of potential class action lawsuits. I don't know exactly where they are, but my familiarity with how class action lawsuits work, I believe there are people who have filed and they're seeking from the court a ruling that would allow them to proceed as a class action, but I have no idea where they are. The little bit that I've read, and Chief can confirm or tell me I'm wrong, but that as I understand it, 6 Hours defending it, saying there's really nothing wrong with this gun. So there is still a dispute, although the statistics continue to gather or accumulate with misfires. One of the issues with the weapon is that it will fire on occasion without pulling the trigger. That being said, Assistant Chief Bierman sent us an email today saying that the Indiana State Police just reached an agreement with 6 Hour to arm all of its officers with this weapon. So obviously the Indiana State Police doesn't think there's a problem with it. I think it's based on the information that I see, and it seems to be a good time to move on to another weapon if we're in a position to do that. I don't think it's bad enough that we would, I think maybe one of your questions is going to be about what should we do with them then? Should we even allow the officers to purchase them back? I think that's something that we could do as long as we get the appropriate waivers, so the city's not maintaining any liability. Kind of anticipating the next question. I'm sorry if I got ahead of myself, but anyway, that's what I know about it. At this point, we wouldn't want to be the plaintiff right now, taking on the gun industry, or at least 6 Hour in the gun industry. But certainly if there is ever a class action certified down the road, and if we can establish that we suffered a loss, then it would certainly be something that we could consider, whether or not we want to join that loss. And if I may, I have a couple more comments. This weapon has had 0 failures for the Bloomington Police Department, as well as many of our sister and brother departments throughout Illinois. It's been very dependable for us. We've put thousands of rounds through these, and upwards of 20,000 for the one that is shot most. And that would be with a SWAT team member. The other thing to say is the best practices in law enforcement in this profession is to rotate guns out every 5 to 7 years. We are nearing that next year. So we're literally almost at the end of the shelf life for this gun, unless we went in and changed the internal mechanics, the spring, the firing pin. We could do that to extend the life of the weapon, but we're in a sweet spot right now where the end of life is coming up on this particular weapon anyway.
Would that resolve the issue that's been raised? Doing that kind of modification, shall we say?
Not according to the Illinois Training and Standards
Okay.
Board, no. The
Okay.
weapon has been barred from
Okay.
training
Yeah.
at the academies.
Yeah. So thank you for that. That answers those questions. And I do want to emphasize that I am not suggesting that we not purchase new weapons and that we keep these old weapons. I'm in favor of purchasing new weapons. What I am wanting to amend, and this is maybe where I just need help in the language, I simply want to strike portions of 2 of the whereas clauses and 1 of the whereas clauses altogether. So the first whereas clause, what I'd like to strike is the second part of the, not a sec, not the first whereas clause. The whereas clause that begins the cost of 145, is it Walter PDP Pro Handgun Systems? That whereas clause, I'd like to strike everything after 132,530. So that would strike, which will be reduced by 20,800 with a trade-in credit for a total cost of 111,730. I'd like to strike that clause that provides for a trade-in. And then I'd like to strike altogether the very next whereas clause that says the cost will further be offset by an estimated 68 officers purchasing their prior weapons for an estimated total credit back to the police department of 23,800. And then in the final whereas clause that I want to strike something from is the next longer one, the one that gets at waiving formal bidding requirements. And I'd like to strike the section that begins with to help offset costs. The vendor has also offered to purchase BPD's existing Sig Sauer firearms. My point in all of this is what I'd like to eliminate is the trade-in and the buyback. If we as a community are purchasing these firearms because they've been determined to be unsafe, and we're making that argument that we need to spend over $100,000 to purchase new firearms to replace ones that are unsafe, I think it is not in the interests of the public for us to then make those available to be sold again, to be used by members of the public for their personal use. I think that while that may be legal, it doesn't feel very ethical to me. And the idea that we have to even have a waiver that people sign saying we won't be held responsible, to me, that actually reinforces the problem in the sense that it says we know that this is wrong. And so as a community, I think that we have an obligation to keep the community safe. That's kind of like the ground rule of keeping people safe. And if we're saying that these are too dangerous to be used by people who have the skills and the expertise and the training to use them as members of our police force, then why on earth would we be selling them for cheap? And possibly having them wind up back on the streets in the hands of people who have far less training and skills. So I would move that we approve this with those amendments that I've indicated.
Other members? Member Hendricks?
Yeah, I will second it for discussion purposes.
So there's a motion, it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion from members? And
Yeah,
Member Mosley?
I have just a question or comment towards that, because what I think I heard you guys just say is we don't have any experience that we've felt default. And the reason I ask that is because I don't want us to put our, because I did look in 6 Hour saying that they don't think that it's a problem. I think we believe that from a best practices, the industry or the body, right, from a training perspective, have said it's best practice to kind of move away with it from it, because we're not going to allow training. And your position is we're up almost a year in. We should probably replace these weapons. A year to our deadline, we would replace these anyway. Let's do it now. We have a price. But I'm just concerned, or do you feel the same way? If, right, because I had the same question, right? Are we selling these? Do we put ourselves into a liability perspective? Waiver is going to be subject to litigation anyway. But if we put that in, are we admitting that, injecting ourselves into the fact that we now think that there's a problem with the gun? Because technically we're doing this not because you've experienced it. You're doing it because you can't use this to send anyone to training, right?
Yes, Mr. Mosley. Again, we have not experienced any issues with this, nor have our other agencies in Illinois. Matter of fact, the gun has been proven to be dependable, very dependable here. There have been federal agencies who have also recently chose to go with the gun. There have been numerous state police agencies that are, Indiana State Police, for instance, they're buying 1,350 of these weapons, of the 6 Hour. There are other, I think Delaware State Police, there are other state police agencies and bigger police departments that are, substantially bigger than ours that have chose to go with this weapon. And so I can't dispute the challenge for the weapon that has brought forth this matter, nor can I speak for the Illinois Law Enforcement Training Standards Boards. We were really surprised that that's what they chose to do, but we do want to be in compliance with them. We have officers that are borrowing guns just to go to the academy that we can't provide for them because they need a different model of guns for their training purposes. And so it is our position that we are just trying to be in compliance with the request of the Training and Standards Board. Fast forward a little bit, let's say 6 Hour develops a fix for this, which could occur. We do have the most upgraded gun. If you go back a generation, a model before this one, they fixed an issue before the city of Bloomington purchased the guns that we currently have. So they're saying that upgrade took care of any issues. That has been 6 Hour's position from what we have been told. So yes, I would agree with your
And
assessment.
I'll just say for Councilmember Ward and Councilmember Hendricks, the only reason that I asked that question was because I think back, right? If we buy a pool car, if I buy a lease turn in, right? I'm signing that waiver that it exists. I don't want us to put ourselves in a position where we can recover some of this funding for something that may be a problem for others, but may not be a problem for us. And that class action never goes through. And we've taken that position. Now we're sitting on inventory, or we've disposed on opportunity for us to recover some of our expenses. So that was the reason that I brought that up or asked.
If I may just make one more comment, I had a few officers approach me today, expressing, Chief, this is sentimental to me, this weapon. And although I may not ever shoot it again, it means a lot to me, as it has for, I think, 25 or more retirees that have retired with more than 20 years. We've already allowed them to take that gun, and it's been the best practice, or that has been the city's practice, is to allow them to go into retirement with their weapon. So do we then recall all of those weapons, right? It's their property now. Just wanted to bring that before the council.
Any other members with questions, comments? If not, there is a motion made. It was seconded. So there's a motion on the floor. And are we clear as to the content and wording within that motion?
Yeah, we also have a recording, several recordings of it, so I'll make sure that it's right. The way that I've stated it for the screen is to move approval of the item with 3 amendments to the resolution as stated. And like I said, we'll go back and make sure that we fine tune it exactly as she has requested.
Okay. I think unless there's any other questions from members, then we'll go ahead and record the vote.
Just really quick.
I'm sorry.
So what we're voting on is this item with the amendments. Is that correct?
No, right now, before you have, well,
We have a question with it.
yes, you have a motion to amend, taking those 3 things out. So if you vote yes, that would be the amendment. The motion would be approved as amended. One point to make too is that if you take those out, there'll be an adjustment to the cost. So you're going to have to increase the cost by the amount that whatever the net is, I think, the credit. So there'll have to be an additional amendment to the total amount, which I haven't done the math on.
So if we're getting to that point and members have some questions.
To clarify,
The question, wait a minute, I'm talking. If the member would consider putting the wording and bringing it back for the next council meeting, is there some timetable in which we have to follow something here?
I don't think we need to do that. I think that if you look at the first whereas clause that where Councilperson Ward asked to take out the addendum, which would lower the cost, which would then end it at 132,530 instead of the reduced amount of 111,730. So I was just trying to make clear that this amendment will change the amount. I don't think we need to make any other adjustments, Chief. Are you good with that? Okay.
Member Motney.
So I like to ask a question of the staff that's presenting here tonight. You've brought forth a recommendation that does not include these amendments. And I just want to understand better your feelings toward that in light of the motions that have been put forth here. It sounds like you came forth with a strong recommendation that we not have these amendments. I'm trying to get a read on the implications of this in a subject where I wasn't prepared for amendments, on the fly. So just if you could speak to that, the implications of these amendments on you, on your staff, on the cost structure, et cetera.
Yes, ma'am. Certainly, we have approximately 100 officers as of today that are interested in purchasing these weapons in a buyback fashion. They understand we have been very transparent about the concerns of the weapon with the Training and Standards Board. We have, again, no evidence that the gun is a failure. And given that we only had 10 officers so far that said they don't want to purchase it. And that's only because they're not gun enthusiasts or collectors. And so I think it would be beneficial to take their interest into perspective. Part number two, the company understands that we may have a higher or lower trade-in to provide them. I can't speak to what the company will do with the weapon once the weapons are transferred to them as a part of some credit. That is normal for police agencies. We don't typically destroy weapons that are of good use. The last time the Bloomington Police Department purchased weapons, they had to trade-in opportunity as well. I come from an agency where we had 3,000 sworn officers. We've traded in weapons towards the purchase of other weapons. Again, I can't account for what Acme Sports decides to do and where they decide to sell it. If they decide to sell it, I can't speak to them on what the next steps would be there. But they are a reputable company. They have serviced several hundred police agencies throughout the country without any concern. Their relations with municipal and other governmental entities has been high standard from what we've been told. I hope that answers your question.
One last thing is that working? Sorry. This is kind of like the officer's last line of defense between life and death that could be at times. And this is very, very sentimental to these officers that this is what they've carried. So it is extremely important to them. I think that was kind of where you were getting at a little bit in regards to that.
And to be clear, you have no concerns about allowing them to acquire these, as it sounds like has been in the past, an approach that's been taken as part of the longevity of the department and typical in other police departments?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. And just for the record, I myself want to purchase the weapon, as does all of the other assistant chiefs, is my understanding as of today.
Thank you.
Any other members? Oh, I'm sorry, Member Lee.
So I just want to clarify, the reselling will be going to trained officers and not just anyone who's wanting to buy these. So it's specifically for the officers that currently have them, giving them the option to keep their weapon. And then the other portion is for the manufacturer will be, so it's not like going out to the public for resale, correct?
Correct. The officers will be restricted to receive the weapon that they currently have. We're not allowing them to buy more than just their weapon for the sentimental purposes. Again, I cannot account for what Acme Sports decision would be with what they do with the guns. They are a federal licensed dealer, so I can't speak to what their next steps would be.
Them and not anyone else. Right? All right. Correct. Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I have
Member.
a question.
Yeah, I just,
Jenna Kearns.
yeah, thank you. Just quickly, I feel like I had similar concerns going into this meeting, wondering about like, you know, the safety, that someone has decided that they're worried about the gun, but I appreciate the conversation and the things that you've said tonight, that it's really helped kind of put it into perspective for me. So I appreciate everything that you've said. Thank you.
Member Scott.
Thank you. So I too am a little wary of the city being a vendor of guns that some agency called not safe. But I recognize and I certainly empathize with your situation in that this is one agency you don't understand. But perhaps is there another example of a time when you've said, no, these guns are not safe. We're taking these off the buyback list?
No, ma'am. I've been in law enforcement for 33, 34 years, and this is I've never heard of that example in my career.
And then one follow-up from there, I understand that these officers are be trained. They then, of course, have the ability to resell those as they see fit.
Yes, there are federal restrictions
Mhm.
on that. The transfer has to be legal within the capacity of the federal law and state law. And they would be subject to having to follow those rules.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Member Ward?
Yeah, I just want to clarify what you just said. So the officers and Acme, subject to federal laws, just like anybody else, could sell these to the public.
Yes, ma'am. I don't have an ability to restrict that.
Any other members with comments? Okay, I think what we'll do at this point is go back and have the amendment that's been changed now read, so everyone hears what we're actually going to vote on. If you would, please.
To be consistent with the motion, there are two other spots in the resolution or ordinance that needs to change. One is in the title of 120,000 would now be 132, 530, and then the end of the first whereas clause, it says in the amount not to exceed $120,000. It would now say in the amount not to exceed $132,500, to be consistent with what you've asked. But I do have all of the amendments highlighted, Your Honor. Hey, 30 years of that, but I do have them, and I don't think there's anything wrong. If you'd like me to read the whole.
I would like you to read
it. Okay. A resolution to authorize waiving the formal bidding requirements and approve the purchase with Acme Sports Inc. for Walther PDP Pro handguns for the Bloomington Police Department in an amount not to exceed $132,530. Whereas, subject to the provisions of the city code, city staff are recommending the authorization to waive the formal bidding requirements and the purchase of Walther PDP Pro handguns for the Bloomington Police Department in the amount not to exceed $132,530. Whereas the detailed quote is attached, Exhibit A, and whereas BPD staff completed extensive research into various handguns and have determined the Walther PDP Pro system to be the best fit for the city, and whereas the purchase consists of a ready out-of-the-box setup coming fully equipped, reliable, and ergonomically similar to the Sig Sauer P320, making training and proficiency on the firearm easier and less costly to the city. And whereas the cost of 145 Walther PDP Pro handgun systems is $132,530. And whereas the city has the ability to waive the technical bidding requirements pursuant to City Code Chapter 16, Section 403. And whereas BPD is also requesting authorization to waive formal bidding requirements due to several compelling factors, including the urgent need to initiate the manufacturing process and recent lapses in training sessions. Taken together, these circumstances make it critical to proceed without delay through the formal bidding process. And whereas the City Council finds it in the best interest of the city to waive the formal bidding requirements and approve the purchase. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bloomington, McLean County, Illinois. Section 1, the above recitals are incorporated herein by this reference as is specifically stated in full. Section 2, that the formal bidding requirements are waived. Section 3, the city manager or designated representatives are authorized to execute the purchase and any other documents necessary to complete this transaction. Passed
this 9th day of February 2026. Approve this blank day of February 2026. And then their signature lines.
Thank you very much. Is there any other members that have any questions or comments before we take a vote? Madam Clerk?
Are both the motioner and the seconder in line with what was just read? All right, so I've adjusted the motion that reads up there, so it just says with amendments, not number 3. And if you have already voted, you can still change your vote. It hasn't been finalized, so you can do it how you'd like. And then we'll go ahead and call it when I have them all in.
I do have one more question, if you don't mind. I mean, I
Member
don't
Mott.
mean to belabor this, but in light of the motion that's on the floor, there is no giving these to the manufacturer. There is no allowing the officers to purchase them. So in this scenario, what happens to these?
Well, ma'am, we would have to destroy them. So we would go through a destruction process, take it off of the city's inventory.
With that, then no other comments, Madam Clerk? Take the vote.
The item fails. If I could read the nays. Jenna Kearns, Michael Mosley, Sheila Motney, Michael Straza, and Kent Lee.
Thank you very much. Next.
I'd be happy to make a motion that we present the item or approve the item as presented. Thank you.
I'll second.
The item passes, just one nay to announce. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you. We'll move on then to the regular agenda item this evening. And under 9A, we have the consideration and action on a resolution approving the fiscal year 2027 John M. Scott Healthcare Trust category and category grant awards. And Mr. Jurgens.
In the interest of time, I'm going to turn this over to our grants manager, William Bessler, and Catherine Porter from the John M. Scott Healthcare Commission. As the community in this council knows, you also serve in the dual role as the trustee for the John M. Scott Health Trust. So with that, William.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and City Manager. Before I hand this presentation over to John M. Scott Healthcare Commission Chairperson Catherine Porter, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all the folks that made this nearly $1 million investment in our community's well-being possible. First, I would like to thank Chairperson Porter and the entire John M. Scott Commission for their tireless efforts. I would also like to thank the community members that assisted the commission review applications for this grant cycle. And finally, I want to thank my staff, especially Joni Gerard, for their support they provide the commission. And with that, I will turn it over to Chairperson Porter.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to present this evening, Mayor Brady, City Manager, and the full council. It truly is an honor to be part of the John M. Scott Commission, and I'm glad to be here tonight to share a little bit about what we've been doing. So next slide, please. So the John M. Scott Healthcare Trust program provides funding for healthcare services here in our community. and for the services that tackle the social determinants of health. The trust funds must be used for McLean County residents and for people that have an annual income at or below 185% of federal poverty level. And the grants are divided into 3 different categories, and I can illustrate those this evening. So if you could, next slide, please. So our grant categories 1, 2, and 3. Currently, we're entering our second year of our category 1 grant cycle. Those are large grants, and it's a 3-year cycle. So that is fiscal year 2026. So heading into the second year there, we have 2 recipients in that category. Category 2 are more related to the Community Health Improvement Plan, the CHIP. That is an annual grant, and we have several of those this evening that will be up for council's vote. The RFP was released in September of 2025, and it was open for about 6 weeks. And those are separated into capital and program funding requests. And then category 3 is also an annual cycle. It's off cycle between 1 and 2, and those applications are open currently, and we'll be presenting to those to council in May of 2026. And those are typically between emergent or emergency needs. Next slide, please. So the funding process, the request for proposal was open in September, like I said, for about 6 weeks. The John M. Scott Healthcare Commission also has a grant committee that reviews all of those applications that come in. They met 3 different times in November and December, made a recommendation to the full commission, which was approved on December 16th. Next slide, please. The applications that were received, we received 2 for the category 2 capital category, a little over 72,000. And then there were 18 requests for category 2 program requests, totaling just over $750,000. The total amount that was requested was over $822,000. Next slide. So this slide really helps to see what's happening and what's being requested this evening. So their category 1 is $250,000. It's year 2 of this 3-year cycle. Our category 2 capital grants, there's 2 of them totaling over $72,000, and then category 2 program grants of $584,000 for a total of just over $900,000 for FY 2027. Next slide. So some funding highlights. Category 2, the top grant that we award in a category 2 for program funding is $75,000, and Home Sweet Home is on that list for the bridge operations. One Hope Project Eating Disorder Program requested $70,000, and then Brightpoint Bloomington Crisis Nursery for a little over $55,000. Those are just 3 of the 18 grants that are part of this resolution. Next slide, please. So the funds that we're talking about this evening really are helping with our Community Health Improvement Plan, our CHIP, with addressing access to care, healthy eating, active living, and then behavioral health. So these organizations that are funding are also working on the social determinants of health to address the root cause of the health disparities in our community. And in the spirit of Judge John M. Scott, we are really serving those folks in our community who are under-resourced to make it a more equitable community. Next slide, please. So next steps would be, if the council approves, the staff would be able to execute those grants to the 20 organizations that would be funded this evening, or 22, sorry. All applicants would receive feedback so that they really had a better chance of getting funded in future years, and then the funding would be released sometime May or June of this year. Any questions?
Any questions from members of the council? Comments? If not, thank you both very much for your presentation and for your service. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to.
Do we need a motion to approve?
Yeah, the three, we have an emotion, don't we?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second by Member Dannenberger.
Second.
Thank you. Take the vote.
The item passes, no nays to announce.
Once again, thank you both very, very much. Did a nice job. Thank you. Move on the regular agenda item to B. And I believe the consideration and action on a resolution waiving the formal bidding requirement and approving a 3-year agreement with Backflow Solutions. And we will have Kelly Pfeiffer, the director, presenting.
Sure, Mayor, council members, thank you for this opportunity. First, I'm going to explain what this is. And seated next to me is our plumbing inspector. He'll be assisting in any questions. So a cross-connection program is required by the EPA. Next slide, please. This is a nice diagram of what it looks like. So the EPA portion, our portion is the public water supply. When people have plumbing systems on their private side, the house side, the commercial side, they can have devices that leave themselves vulnerable. If we would have a break or something and change pressure, they literally can suck the private water back into our system. So this is about protecting our water supply. Next slide. So this comes out of our chapter 34, which is actually our plumbing code. And EPA Safe Water Act requires us to do this. Again, the backflow can occur when you get some backwards pressure and suck it into our system, leaving us vulnerable. Next slide, please. So currently, we do not meet current regs. We only provide a cross-connection survey program for commercial entities. We have about 3,300 of them. So we have 29,000 customers of our water system. So right now, these commercial accounts, they have to supply a survey every 2 years, and they pay annually for every device to test to us. Again, right now, we're not doing residential accounts. We have about 3,700 sewer only accounts, which is kind of, you can infer that water only, no sewer accounts. You can infer then that that is a potential that they have a cross connection device. It's like if you have a sprinkler system, you have a second meter, but you're not paying sewer on that meter. That's an indication that you may have. So we think roughly about 1,000 of our residential customers may end up having one of these cross connection devices. We are currently not collecting any surveys and not requiring any testing. They're still required to do that, but not submit it to us. I'm going to assume they're probably not getting done. Next slide, please. So our proposed solution. So internally, we manage 3,300 right now. And that is very difficult for our staff to do anyway. And we have some really old software. So the transparency isn't there. BSI provides this. They do this all over Illinois. We're looking at a 3-year agreement. So it's Backflow Solutions, Inc. to manage our program. So they are very predominantly in Illinois. We did find another company that does something like this, but they're not in Illinois, and they were about 3 times as much. So right now the cost is $148,545 to survey all of our customers. It's basically $5 per address. And there's very limited setups, so $4,500 plus an annual of $995. So this, if we go with them, we can bring ourselves into full compliance with the EPA and fully protect our water system. Next slide, please. So these are some of the entities. So Illinois American Water is all over Champaign, things like that. Champaign doesn't do his own. These are some other companies that they partner with to provide this service. Next slide, please. So they have 30 years experience. Again, they're headquartered here, 40 states, 75 employees. They do 1,000 water systems. We did talk to a lot of plumbers and entities that actually have to upload these tests, and they were pleased with BSI's interface and the ease of doing that. That was one of our considerations. Next slide, please. So currently, a general commercial account with a device will actually have a cost decrease under this. So right now, a current account would pay $40 every year for a device test, and they would submit a survey to us every 2 years. The state requires a survey every 3. Our code requires them to do the survey every 2. So we're proposing to charge $65 annually per device. But this program, the city would cover the cost of the survey for all entities. This will generate about $120,000 a year in revenue that will hopefully pay for the then next survey that's needed to be done in 3 years, as well as this won't come without some staff. They will send 3 notices, failed, you need a test. We still may have to follow up with a small percentage of these, but it'll be small, and we can do that with internal CIE staff. So the residential accounts, we're proposing not to charge them at all for the uploading of their test. The revenue from the program will cover that. These residential accounts, so you know, they will have to hire a plumber to do these device tests. They probably already have them. Like if you have a sprinkler system, you already got somebody coming out and starting and stopping. The difference is they have to upload the test into BSI. In this case, that would be $16.95, but under our cost structure, we would cover that under this through the revenue from the commercial accounts. So there is a cost to those people that are not getting that testing done. We found that that's roughly about $75 to $100 for those. And again, they might be actually doing it with their like sprinkler startup and stop up. So next slide, please. Oh, and questions.
Are there any questions from members? Member Mosley.
I have a question, and it's kind of 2 parts, one for you and then maybe one for you, city manager. And my question is, those that aren't testing that you may identify, do we have steps that we're going to kind of help get them in, or are there consequences because they may not have been testing, right?
So the survey will inform us of how many have devices that need to be tested. It's kind of a pretty easy survey. It asks you some basic questions like, it's like if then, do you have a sprinkler system? It says yes, and then you're already flagged. So BSI will flag them and then let them know they have to submit a test of that device. So when we roll that out, first we're going to get this working with our commercial customers, and then we'll move into implementing with the residential.
Okay. And then my second part of my question is obviously using a third party, right, to help us get in compliance, and this serves as our attestation. Is this something that we do for all of our or other compliance issues, or is it an opportunity for us to kind of centralize this as a whole? And you don't have to answer that question now. It's just something that we may revisit and things like that.
I think it's a mix, but I'll let Kelly, and if you guys are able to answer this now.
Well, as far as compliance with this program, we could do this internally. We absolutely could do this. We just need a couple more staff, an entire new software program, and things, and we're looking for efficiencies. And you didn't ask this, but I forgot to say this. One of the things right now is our current system has limited logins. So every time the clerk has a license that they need to see whether or not they're compliant with our Cross Connect, they have to send an email, then our folks have to log in. This will just make it nice and transparent for all city users to be able to see statuses. I forgot to say that.
No, and the only reason I was asking, right, I was thinking ahead, is there other services that you could provide that could free you up for other things, right?
We are absolutely looking at every possible thing that we could do, given staff resource limitations. Yes.
Any other members with questions? Member Lee?
So you said we're currently not in compliance. Are we being penalized for that? I'm surprised that no, we've gone this long without being compliant.
Eric is thrilled that I'm going to have him do this.
Indeed. So Member Lee, first of all, thank you everyone for considering this evening. We currently have a very strong reputation within the Illinois, within the communities, especially with the Illinois EPA. I have had discussions discreetly And Bloomington has a very, like I said, a very strong reputation for being very proactive. It is currently, to some estimation, the strongest cross-connection program in the state. And for a city of our size, I think that's quite impressive that we can get that comment made to us by a state agency. There are many reasons why we probably wouldn't have been, we could have probably skated by a little while. It's one of those, it's better to be prepared and not need it than need it and not be prepared.
Thank you. As yeah, I know compliance with regulatory bodies is very important. So I'm glad we're doing this. I'm surprised that it wasn't sooner. So thank you.
Other members? Thank you very much. No? If not, was there a member who wished to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
seconded by member Dannenberg, I'm sorry, member Straza. Okay. All right. You take the vote.
The item passes, no nays to announce.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you for your presentations and answering the questions. Next, we're going to move to consideration and action on the resolution establishing the 2026 City of Bloomington Council strategic priorities and guiding principles for the City of Bloomington, and City Manager Jurgens to present.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. If you go to the next slide, this is a continuation of the discussion that we started at the Committee of the Whole in February and follows the retreat that the council held last year. These are the strategic priorities that we have been discussing, and I won't go through all of it again, except to say that we identified 3 core principles, which are to make sure that our actions are fiscally disciplined, that we are looking at quality of life, and that we are also focused on community engagement. And then when you go to the strategic priorities on the next slide, we have identified infrastructure, housing, public safety, and economic vitality. And there are a number of different things beneath all of those categories. So the information is all on the presentation if we want to see it on the screen. But again, this is just a repeat of the presentation from January. So at this point, we would be happy to answer any questions, but this approval of this resolution tonight will help guide us as we start to bring items forward. We will identify how we are meeting these the strategic priorities and how we are following these core principles. Happy to answer any questions.
And are there any questions or comments from members of the council? If not, is there a motion to? Okay, motion by member Scott, seconded by
Dannenberg.
And if you take the electronic vote, please.
Councilmember Ward, how would you like to vote?
Aye.
Thank you. The item passes, no nays to announce.
Thank you very much. Being that is all of the items on the agenda, we will move then to our city manager's report. City Manager Jurgens.
Thank you again. Just one slide tonight. If you could go ahead and go to it. Or maybe 2. Okay, just one. Last Thursday, I did, in accordance with the city code, issue a proclamation on our water conservation efforts. our combined lakes, Lake Evergreen and Lake Bloomington, hit a combined deficit of 10 feet under. And under our city code, that triggers a number of measures that we are to take. And so we have been talking about water conservation for some time. And that's because, as you can see on the screen, we are in a drought, and we've been in a drought for a while. The numbers, the statistics that I have up there tonight are from the government's website on this. And this shows that we had overall in the entire state, I think the 28th driest year in a number of years. But when you drill down to McLean County, and I shared this before, I think it was the ninth driest year since over the last 131 years. So we are certainly in a drought. We're seeing a lot of communities that are enacting these water conservation measures, and they are best practices. What we are encouraging people to do is just, again, best practice, use the nominal water that you need. So if you're brushing your teeth, don't have the water on. Shorter showers, do a full load of laundry, a full load of dishes. Maybe don't clean your car, wash your car 3 times a week, those types of things. Because we are in the middle of February, a lot of the actual mandatory provisions of the city code are not applicable because people are not watering their lawns right now, and those types of things. So again, we are just asking the community to engage in those best practices. We have a goal targeting 10% of reduction. When we came out with the first round, it was a 5% goal, and the community truly did step up. We think, based on some of the measurements, we were hitting up to 6% in savings. And so now we are asking the community to step up again and continue to conserve as much water as they can until we hopefully get those spring rains. Happy to answer any questions about that, but we will continue to spread the word about water conservation until we get out of this. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments of the city manager by members? If not, then we will move to the council members discussion. Any comments, Member Kearns? No. Member Mosley?
Yeah, I'll just say, I think I mentioned earlier today that today was my 1-year anniversary being on council. And so thank you, Ms. Yoakum, for swearing me in. But just wanted to thank everybody for all your help, support, getting me acclimated, and the constituents in Ward 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy anniversary. Member Botany? Okay. Member Dannenberg? Member Straza?
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to share. A couple of weeks ago, I got a message from Tracy Henry she's the Associate Executive Director of IHSA. She just wanted to say that just a compliment to Anthony Nelson and his team, that they had the best IHSA dance state final ever at Grossenger Motors. They had 22 suites, and they all sold out and had a waiting list on Friday. So she just wanted to make sure I communicate that to the staff and to everybody that the team that he has was such a great success, and just want to make sure everyone knows that his leadership is very valued by the IHSA, and just want to make sure everyone was aware how great the team did. And the other names were Kristen and Maurice were the other 2 that were part of that team. So
Thank you. Good to hear. Member Scott?
Yes, I just have one thing. I want to say big thanks to our fire department and Battalion Chief Gavin Pitcher for my ride along a week and a half ago. It was amazing. It was mind blowing. And every single person in the station was fully available. They were fully engaged, asking me about what questions I had, offering me to intubate their dummy and practice tracheotomy, not on a human, but again on a dummy. And I just learned a lot. Just clearly, it's a culture of folks that are committed and committed to their jobs. And I learned also that it's clear in our community that besides crime or besides public safety along those lines, the fire department is really the first place to go for all emergencies, regardless of whether or not it's appropriate to. And every time they came out, they had excellent, just for lack of a better word, customer service. And they were absolutely just top notch, start to finish. And so thanks to Mike Straza for providing the fear of missing out for me to do it. And I certainly encourage anybody to do it as well.
Thank you. Member Lee? Member Hendricks? Member Ward? thank you all for your comments. And I have some brief remarks, I think, coming up. First off, over the weekend, while there was many events, I do want to thank, there was a number of council members that attended the McLean County Chamber Gala and was able to salute business in McLean County and obviously Bloomington. So we thank you for that. And the Tour de Chocolate, which was this weekend on Friday in downtown Bloomington. Some numbers to share with you. It was very encouraging that the full boundaries of downtown, they were estimating over 17,000 people, visitors, and over 3,000 higher than what it was last year they anticipated. We want to thank Ferrero, who was a sponsorship with the candy and chocolates, as well as some others. We also saw that in just the Buckle area, as it's referred to as, there was over 4,000 visitors, 18% higher than last year. And just in the arena area from 5 to 8 that evening, there was, or for the entire event that was the event that Member Straza alluded to, there's over 10,500 visitors, 4% higher than last year for the IHSA state chair finals. So we want to also thank all those involved, obviously, and the total concessions is estimated for the weekend at the arena was over $105,000. So we're encouraged by that as well. And we also want to say thank you again to the partners from the IHSA, our downtown team that worked very, very hard on that event, and Deputy City Manager Billy Tyers, who worked very hard on that, and to all of those involved. Thank you very much. We look forward to more events as the weather improves. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that
Member
motion.
Edwards. Second.
Second.
Member Dannenberger. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a nice evening.